Good morning, everybody, and welcome to cnky.in. And we're back after a really long pause, given various trips I had to take. Yesterday, we've had news of an India-China defrosting at the BRICS summit. Also, the BRICS summit seems to be a very great success, hosted by President Vladimir Putin in Kazan. And today we have noted sinologist and the director of Appia Institute, Professor Francesco Sisci, who has kindly agreed to discuss this with me today. So, welcome, Francesco. And we're both commenting here from Rome. So, give me some perspective on how you see the BRICS summit that happened at Kazan.
Well, it was significant. It was significant because a lot of countries came together, and there was some talk, and I think the most important part was that the possibility of reforming the IMF and the doubts many people have on the present financial order. However, given the situation, I don't see any real progress there because everybody wants to reform Wall Street, but you have to bring Wall Street on the table to actually make a dent there. And so Wall Street and the big financial institutions were not there. So these points, I'm afraid, could be moved, so to speak, for some time. The second point, I think, is far more significant. The summit, the meeting between President Xi Jinping and the Indian Prime Minister Modi. It is apparently a thaw between these two countries, which clashed over the Himalaya, quite a few times, couple of times over the past 5 years. There are 1 million soldiers, Indian soldiers, over the 3,000 kilometers long border, and there is a very significant deployment of tanks and batteries and guns from the Chinese side. So this first agreement, which was announced just a few days before the summit between China and India on the border, could have a large impact. However, we have to follow developments in the next few weeks and months and to see if more substance is added to it.
A question, Professor. The Indian side obviously credits this start of tensions to a Chinese enmassing of troops in 2020 and Chinese movement of troops. So, from the Indian perspective, this is a Chinese priority, or let's put it this way, a change in Chinese policy that this agreement is reached. Do you think this is the case? And if so, what do you think would be the reasons why, after 4 years, Xi Jinping and the Chinese administration would have had this change of heart?
I think there must be some change of heart, as you said, in Chinese leadership. I think they don't need the extra tension with India. China doesn't need it, and they have already a lot of tensions around Taiwan, with Japan, and the South China Sea. And these things are, I would say, even more difficult to manage. The border issue with India, in theory, the two countries had reached an agreement about 20 years ago on the lines of actual controls. There were patrols moving back and forth on the disputed areas. All of a sudden, China had a change of heart about 6-7 years ago, feeling insecure, feeling that whatever reasons, now we won't go into that, but I think there has been a new change of heart, thinking that the relationship with India is extremely important. Also because China is keen on managing its relationship with some of restive Indian neighbors like Pakistan, like Sri Lanka, and things don't go very well there. Particularly Pakistan, I would say. Just in the past months, there have been attempts against Chinese nationals working in Pakistan. China has increased for extra security in Pakistan. Pakistan, of course, is reluctant to give because that would increase domestic tensions with the Baluchistan pro-independent forces. So in this situation, I think China doesn't need the extra aggravation of difficult relationship with India.
Two quick questions on this, continuing on the Pakistan issue. The Americans found out, much to their chagrin, that Pakistan was not a very reliable ally in Afghanistan. And it's something that the Chinese are now learning very late. This newfound friendship between India and China, will this mean that China is also deciding to become tougher towards its relationship with Pakistan, which has kind of been very unquestioning so far? Or does this mean that it's just, a temporary truce with India until you see who comes to the White House and how this goes for the Chinese?
I think maybe neither. I mean, China lived through a difficult relationship with Pakistan even long ago. I mean, there were people in the security forces of Pakistan helping Mujahideen or Taliban in Afghanistan, who in turn helped pro-independence Uyghur force in Xinjiang. So the Chinese were well aware of this strange triangulation, and yet decided that the only way to manage this difficult problem at the time was to hold somehow everything, all the balls up in the air. So I don't think they are ready to cut ties or even tone down the level of relationship with Pakistan. After all, the relationship with India fraught on many fronts. However, I think they are exploring. China is now exploring even the think about IMF. I think it's interesting. I mean, a reform of IMF includes, would include, opens the gate to a possible path for full convertibility of the renminbi. Now, presently, Chinese currency, the renminbi, is not fully convertible, and this is the main stumbling block in ties and talks with the United States. So reform of IMF could be a way to. So China is probing, I would say, and it doesn't want to be caught in an untenable situation with neighbors. We know that they had openings with Vietnam, where they have a lot of issues. They are trying to reach out to Japan. So they are now moving towards a different direction, still probing, I would say.
And you don't think that this will change after the November elections, depending on who wins? This newfound love towards India will not change post a new president in the White House, because we are either going to have a new president in the White House no matter who wins. And will this in any ways affect this defrosting of relationships that has just happened in Kazan?
Well, the point of the White House is, I think, extremely important, because for the first time in at least 80 years, there is no consensus in Washington about foreign policy. So for 80 years, during the Cold War and after the Cold War, there was a general consensus. There were differences, but mainly difference on tactics, I would say, on details, on implementation, but not general difference on the main thrust of foreign policies. Now we have, in theory, a divide between the policies announced by the two candidates, Harris and Trump. So we have to wait. Either Washington finds a consensus again on a general pattern, or foreign politics becomes a battleground for a new battleground between forces, Republicans and Democrats. So I would say different forces in Washington. So we don't know. So we have an extra, I would say, an extra question mark. And after that, we have to see what is happening, who will come on board. It could be a short time, it could be a long time. In the meantime, I would say, China isn't waiting, and it wants to find ways. My sense is that possibly Russia may also have helped this rapprochement with China and India. Russia is moving very fast on many fronts. We see this announcement of 12,000 troops. It's a lot of people already, and more might be coming from North Korea to the Ukrainian front. This is creating new tensions. South Korea has announced it will deploy troops, possibly intelligence officers first, and then maybe even more troops. We know that South Korea already provides supplies, weapons, equipment to Ukraine. We see a growing tension, and what I can sense is that China wants to take a step back, doesn't want to be caught in something that where it's hard to move. Many people are probing. So somehow things are now in motion, even without waiting for the results of the presidential elections.
My last question, Francesco, and then I let you go because I'm sure you're very much in demand today. BRICS. India has underlined that it does not see it as an anti-Western platform. The West and G7 have continuously announced that Putin is isolated. Does this latest BRICS summit prove anything, if any, as far as Putin's own political as well as physical health after so many years of sanctions? And does it show the success of the BRICS vis-a-vis the Western supported systems of geopolitics, G7, the Bretton Woods sisters, and other platforms?
I think more than anything, maybe the BRICS meeting and growing number of countries joining or willing to join BRICS proves that there is a growing dissatisfaction with the existing structures, international structures, and namely the UN. The UN doesn't work anymore, and we know it on different fronts. And the G7 is a rich boys club. G20 is still very amorphous and doesn't take shape. And there is, I think, a quest for more and different international structures and platforms where people can meet and discuss, not simply on a bilateral basis. So BRICS provides one such a platform. We will see if anything happens with the UN, with the new US administration, which could launch different structures. We don't know. I think more than anything, it proves that the international situation is in great motion, and things are moving very fast. We have two wars. We have a conflict, I don't know, for lack of better words, around China. We shall see. And we don't have a clear American leadership. In fact, we have two different mindsets. We shall see if America finds a consensus or anyway finds one line under one president.
Thank you so much for making time. I reserve the right to do this again once the American presidential elections are over so that we can actually figure out how this is going to roll out in the coming months, because I think we live in very interesting times, and India and China are the second and the fifth most important economy in the world, both very growing. Two of the most populous countries in the world, 1/6 of the world lives in both these countries. And whatever happens in DC is definitely going to affect this temporary defrosting of relationships. So thank you again, and thank you for making the time, and see you soon. And thanks
See
for
you soon.
watching.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for your patience.
Bye. Have a good day. Bye.